right? Facebook page?
I believe so, Larry.
It's streaming.
And YouTube.
It's streaming on YouTube. Yes.
Oh, not the Facebook page?
No. I think Josh does forward it to Facebook too.
Okay.
Yes, we are live.
Okay.
Okay, well, everybody, thank you for joining in. Sorry for the delay, a little technical difficulty, which we took care of in fine style. And we just got off a caucus with the Democratic caucus of the Common Council. So again, I'm Mayor Rilling. I hope everyone, all of the mothers and families had a wonderful, wonderful Mother's Day. A little bit different this year than in the past, but I'm sure everybody enjoyed each other's company and the camaraderie and the loving of a family. So we're going to be here for about 45 minutes, and we're going to give an update on what's happening in the city, in the state, and within the police department, and then we'll have time for some questions and answers afterwards. This week, I'm happy to be joined by Police Chief Tom Kaholik and State Senate Majority Leader Bob Duff. We'll provide a brief update, as I said, and then we'll have some questions and answers. Some housekeeping notes. Type in your questions by hitting Q&A down at the bottom of your screen. You'll see that. You'll be able to type in your questions. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we possibly can in the time frame that we've allowed. If you have any questions or concerns that you wish to address privately, please feel free to email me. My email address is hrilling@norwalkct.org, and I'll do my best to get back to you as quickly as possible, or I will have somebody from my staff get back to you. So feel free to enter your questions now during our updates, and we'll get to the questions and answers in a few minutes. So some recent city updates. Senator Duff will probably be talking about the reopening plan for the state of Connecticut, but I wanted to talk a little bit about Norwalk. We'll be releasing our reopening plan probably no later than tomorrow afternoon. It shows how we will be gradually opening some of our facilities over the next couple of weeks based on the same criteria that the state is using for opening the state. We wanted to wait to put our reopening plan out so that we'd be consistent with the guidelines put forward by the state. Ours will mostly be dealing with city buildings, with city amenities, city parks, city properties, and the like. And the businesses which have been closed by the state will be reopening gradually, and that will be affecting Norwalk as well. So it shows ours will be talking about parks, beaches, and other municipal services that will come back online. And as I said, we're going to put that out by tomorrow afternoon. It'll be on our city website as well. We also know that starting around May 20th, when we're going to be looking at where we are and seeing if we can reopen part of the state, that some of the restaurants will be allowed to open again with outdoor dining, but with certain restrictions. We've heard from a lot of the restaurants about some of the things they'd like to see, some of the difficulties that they envision with doing the outdoor dining. And we have sent out a survey to the restaurants to find out what it is, how they'd like Norwalk to implement outdoor dining, what they would like to see, some of the things that they would need from the city, and so forth. So we'll be getting that back, and by May 15th or so, we'll probably have a good plan in place and working with the restaurants to help them. We know that they're struggling like a lot of other businesses, and they'd like to see us get back to some degree of normalcy as soon as possible. As you know, we have been distributing food to our school students under the age of 18, and we are going to be opening up 2 new sites. Tomorrow, we should have the Colonial Village site open, and next week we'll be opening the East Norwalk site as well. The East Norwalk Library will be a site where people can do the grab-and-go meals. They can come by, pick up the meals to help feed their family. So the other thing is talking about our reopening plan quickly. We want to make sure that we follow the advice of the medical professionals. You know, I've said it before and I'll say it again. There is no Republican or Democratic way to deal with this pandemic. We are writing the manual every single day. We are trying to move forward with new information that we receive virtually on a daily basis. And we're cautiously approaching this because we don't want to just flip the switch and open up everything all at once. We want to make sure we do it based on the situation at any given time. Are hospitalizations down? Are the number of cases down? Unfortunately, in Norwalk, we already have 1,832 cases, and even much sadder is the fact that we have 104 people in our community have passed away from this virus. So this is a serious situation, and we want to make sure that if we open up, we do it gradually, kind of like what I call a dimmer switch. We see this light at the end of the tunnel. It's not very bright right now, but if we increase that dimmer switch gradually and start opening slowly, it's going to get brighter and brighter, and eventually we can open up most of the city again. But it's going to rely on people. It's going to rely on the willing compliance of people who will understand that there are certain universal protocols and certain things that we need to do in order to everybody contribute to the situation and make sure that we're all being responsible. It's not about me. It's not about any one individual. It's about who that individual could infect if they come into contact. So somebody going out and contracting the virus, there's a great likelihood that they're going to give it to at least 2 or 3 other people. And that could be an elderly a parent, a grandparent, somebody with an underlying medical condition that'll be much more serious for that person. So please be responsible. Please take all necessary precautions. The other thing I want to add is that we're looking to get more PPEs and masks to distribute in the community. So far, the city of Norwalk has distributed over 150,000 PPEs, masks, and other kinds of protective equipment to police, fire, healthcare people, the housing authority, and a Norwalk hospital. We're looking to get another supply very soon so that we can have a general distribution and start distributing to seniors and other people who may need them. So with that, I will turn over the floor to Senate Majority Leader Bob Duff and bring us up to date on what's happening around the state. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everyone. I want to thank you and Chief Kahalik for all your work that you've been doing during this unprecedented time. It is very much appreciated, in which the city and the state are working very well together, working hard to keep the safety and health of our residents in the forefront of our decision making. And we appreciate everybody's help and role in that as well. As we know that over the last week or so, we've seen fewer hospitalizations, which is good. We're now ramping up more testing, and we're hoping that we have flattened the curve and we're on a downward trend. But let that not be a cause to lighten up or lessen some of the good work that's been done over the last 2 months. We have worked very, very hard to ensure public safety, and throughout the state level and also here in the city of Norwalk as well. And your team deserves a lot of the credit for that. So I just want to mention that from my perspective, we're working hard on the state level to continue to balance the needs of the public health and public safety, as well as working to reopen the state's economy. Legislative leaders such as myself and the governor's team and the Reopen Advisory Board are on the phone multiple times a week with Dr. Albert Coe, Indra Nui, Paul Mounds, Chief of Staff, as well as David Lehman, who's Commissioner in the Department of Economic and Community Development. As I've been saying that we have a slow and measured response to reopening the state of Connecticut, Indra talks about it being baby steps. I certainly understand and recognize the fact that many people think that we may be opening too quickly. But again, the response to opening is designed to be very slow, very measured, and to be baby steps, as Indra would say. So with that said, we have 4 different levels. safety levels for folks. The first starting on May the 20th, which will open up hair salons, restaurants, outdoor dining only. It'll open up offices, but people are still encouraged to work from home if they can. And it'll also open research and outdoor cultural institutions like zoos and other places as well. So, and some retail. So this will hopefully do it in a way that is very measured and responsible, so that we'll look at that. We'll keep, Dr. Coe looks at the data every day, and then we will determine when we get to phase 2 or level 2, level 3, and then level 4, which is kind of a back to normal. Very much in our minds is the whether or not we have a second wave and how we deal with that. I'm glad that, Mayor, you have decided to refund summer camp for folks. The governor said that things like camping is okay, but sleepaway camp is not okay, day camp is okay, but parents obviously are going to have to make those decisions as to what they feel is best for themselves. So the things about reopening and how that is done will be determined based on a number of different metrics. And I did have Dr. Coe on a Facebook Live a week ago, it was last Wednesday, and he talked about that quite a bit. There is more testing happening here in the state. It doesn't, you don't need a doctor's note any longer. And that whole idea is to test about 30,000 people or so per week here in the state, so that we can get a better sense, and to also ramp up the contact tracing that is so important. There should be some information, some good news coming out this week on more personal protective equipment, and that'll be good news for the people of the state. And we continue to work with others to bring in more of the PPE that is so important. So certainly want to just end this by giving a shout out to everyone who has worked so hard, including our first responders, of course, our grocery store workers, our rest stop workers, our nursing home workers, Merritt, and Chief, thank you for your help as we did a little thank you to some of our nursing home workers this past Friday. They really appreciated it. And again, just folks, just keep yourselves safe and healthy, listen to the medical professionals, and we'll continue to get through this pandemic together. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Senator. And, thank you for the shout out to the frontline people, the people that are doing the work, putting themselves out there. Let's not forget that tomorrow, May 12th, is International Nurses Day. Please thank the nurses who are working hard, many of them working 12-hour shifts, 12 on, 12 off, sleeping at the hospital, not able to see their families. They're really, really doing a wonderful, wonderful job, and we certainly appreciate them. So now, with more amenities and services coming online, enforcement is going to be the key to making sure that we can maintain that social distancing and that people are complying with the governor's orders and with the closures, and how some of the parks may be open, but the amenities in the parks will be closed because it would be too dangerous to have people using those amenities and being close to each other and touching them. So with that, I will turn the floor over to Chief Kaholic. Chief, thanks for being here.
Good evening. Good evening to everyone out there. Just to go over just a few things I just wanted to mention. As far as the police department goes, we've been very fortunate in that we haven't been affected greatly by the COVID virus. I think it's a testament to the officers using their personal protective equipment and also social distancing, et cetera, even though they're in an environment sometimes where they really can't. So we were really concerned going into this, and we're very fortunate that we have not seen the worst. In fact, it's been very, very good. So that's the number one thing. Another positive is that our calls for service are down pretty dramatically during this while people were staying home. We saw no increase in any calls, generally speaking, except for one area where people are not locking their cars. And kids are out there in the evening or at night, and they are entering unlocked cars and just rummaging through. So we've seen a lot of those burglaries, and basically to unlock cars. So again, I just want to remind everyone lock your cars, take your fobs inside. Don't leave it out there as an easy target. The one area that we were surprised in is with domestic violence. We expected to see an increase as people were locked up in the house for long periods of time. And interestingly, we've seen a decrease in calls for domestic violence. And that's also a concern because we're not quite sure if there really is a decrease or we're just not getting the calls because people aren't able to make those calls. They don't feel safe making the call. So we're working with the Domestic Violence Crisis Center. Our Special Victims Unit is looking at that to try to see if there's something we can do in that regard. And hopefully it has been a reduction and it's not just the lack of calls. As far as the enforcement, social distancing, et cetera, again, we've been very fortunate. The public's been very cooperative, generally speaking. We do have officers that are checking parks and the beach and other areas. We've gotten some calls for some of the larger box stores for people not social distancing. And we really are leaving that up to the individual stores to try to police that and really enforce it themselves so that we don't have to be called there. If we are, we will go and the officers will do what they can to try to get people to abide by the governor's orders. Face masks and face coverings, that has not been a major issue. Unfortunately, though, there are some people that are confused on when you need to wear them. And if you're within 6 feet of another person in public, yes, you're supposed to wear a face covering. If you're by yourself, obviously you don't need it if you're outside. So we're getting some calls from people saying that they saw a couple people without face masks, and we're trying to educate them. Also remember that there are some people that are not going to wear them for medical reasons, and the governor has allowed that. And they don't need to show proof as to the medical condition. So it's more of an honor system there. So again, we're using common sense in how we're enforcing the governor's orders. And what we will do moving forward as things start to reopen is try to use the licensing, the health department, the liquor commission, and use those avenues if businesses are not cooperating, because they have a lot of power in the licensing with the restaurants, with liquor permits, et cetera. So I'm hoping that will be a good avenue if we don't get cooperation. But again, I'm pretty optimistic from what we've seen that we're going to get cooperation. And towards that reopening, beginning on Wednesday, we'll be meeting weekly with the various department heads, Parks and Rec, DPW, et cetera, to plan as the mayor, as you lift restrictions little by little over time. We want to be prepared and all be on the same page. So we're starting to meet weekly on Wednesdays to discuss how we're going to work together, make sure we all know what exactly is happening, and then we can deal with it. And finally, I just wanted to mention, Senator Duff mentioned camps. Unfortunately, we had to cancel our DARE camps that we usually have in the summer. Again, it just wasn't conducive given the restrictions in place. And we're going to be refunding the money that people paid for the DARE camp. As the treasurer for PAL, unfortunately, I'm the one that'll have to write about 100 checks. But we'll get those out as soon as we can.
Oh, no, just us.
And finally, I just want to thank the community for the support of the police department. We've had donations of food. We've had donations of protective equipment. We've had donations of hand sanitizer, you name it. I had an individual in the city drop off 200 small little bottles of hand sanitizer with our logo on it on Friday. So that was pretty neat. I mean, the things that people are doing are really amazing. And then just finally, unrelated to COVID, but because of it, our annual police memorial service obviously cannot be held in the traditional manner because we can't bring all those people to the police department. But what we have done is we prepared a video, which will be shown on Thursday in place of the memorial service. And it came out very, very well. So I'm looking forward to that. We will have our honor guard lower the flags live. We'll show that on our Instagram and social media pages, and then that'll follow with a video tribute that'll play following that. So that'll be 11 o'clock on Thursday.
Okay, well, thank you, Chief. Appreciate your update. Thank you, Senator Duff. And thank you for giving a shout out. there's a lot of people in the community that have really stepped up. And earlier I mentioned that we had passed out approximately 150,000 pieces of personal protective equipment. We just got a huge donation from Grace Farms, and I do want to thank them as well. They donated masks to the city. They donated masks to Vitas up on Main Avenue. So thank you for everybody who has done so much at a time when we really need people to step up. And I also want to echo something that the chief said. As I drive around, seeing what's going on throughout the city on a daily basis, I'll go to the various locations. I see most people the vast majority of people being very, very responsible. And I truly appreciate that because, it takes all of us to do our duty. There are some individuals that perhaps slip a little bit, and it's a time to give them a nudge, a little bit of a reminder that, if you're within close proximity to others and you're outside and you're able to wear a mask, you should. Stay home unless you have to go out. One person shopping in a family. I know a lot of people perhaps now with the struggles don't have the wherewithal to purchase groceries for an entire week at any given time. But if you can do that, that'd be helpful because you want to limit the number of times that you have to go to the store. So again, thank you. If either Senator Duff or Chief Kahalik have anything else to add, what I'll start doing is reading some of the questions that we have. The first question is from Paul. Why isn't the yard waste and transfer stations open at the regular time? Opening more would help social distancing. We had only limited hours because we have limited staff. We're kind of working alternating shifts so that we don't have too many people out in the public at any given time. You can imagine if we were to start having the virus spread among our DPW staff or our police department or our fire department, it could be catastrophic. So over the next couple of days, you'll see in my reopening plan that the yard waste and the transfer stations will be open for extended hours. So we are planning on doing that. Why can't our beach be open as they are in other towns and cities? Well, as you know, the beach has never been closed. The beach has only been closed to vehicle traffic. And that was because as the weather was getting warmer and I would drive down there, the parking lot would be totally crowded. In fact, at one day, there were so many people there were virtually no parking spaces left. And the beach was extremely, extremely crowded. We are going to be opening our beach to vehicle traffic very soon. And we're working on limiting the number of vehicles that can be there at any one time, and certainly limiting the number of any out-of-town vehicles that can be there as well. If you need to get a permit, you can get online and check to see that your vehicle is listed as being registered in the city of Norwalk. And if you're not having a vehicle registered in the city of Norwalk, you can also buy a season's pass at a price. Do you feel travel softball and baseball teams will have a summer season? I kind of doubt it. I really don't think that that's going to happen. But again, as we move forward, the reopening plan that we've put together it's a living, breathing document. It's not carved in stone, and that's the only answer. As things start to change, if things start to improve, we can kind of make the decisions that we have to make. And perhaps be a little bit more flexible and open something a little bit sooner than perhaps we had anticipated. I know with something like travel softball and baseball teams, I would imagine that most of the other communities aren't going to have the teams either. So, that's probably going to affect anything that we would do. But also I know that for travel softball and baseball teams, you have to have some advanced planning, as making arrangements for the travel, a schedule, and so forth. So I don't think that we probably will. As a church, can we meet for a Memorial Day picnic with under 50 people outdoors with social distancing? Probably not at this point in time. 50 people gathering, when you have a picnic, people tend to get closer to each other, and then if you're under 50 people and it turns out to be over 50 people, we're not issuing permits for city property at this particular time for any gatherings in excess of 10 people at all. And you don't need a permit for a group of 10. But we're probably not going to be issuing permits for city property for these kinds of events anytime soon until we can get our arms around this. This one I'll refer to Senator Duff. Senator, what are the next businesses to open? You're on mute.
That's a great question, and I think that that is a great question, and one that is being looked at right now by the Reopen Advisory Board. And the reason why there's really not a specific answer yet is it really depends on what happens during phase 1, which is May 20th until June 30th, and what happens to the trends of hospitalizations, positives, testing, whether or not there's enough PPE for the next phase of businesses, whether or not there's adequate contact tracing. So there's a lot of factors that go into whether or not what particular business opens. These are not being done just by folks who are just may have a concern or a kind of an edge one way or another. These decisions are being made by epidemiologists, by a whole host of folks who are at the table and working together on a number of these different ideas. So I would say that phase 2 will not come out until after June 30th. Obviously, as you said, for Norwalk, it's nothing set in stone. I will say this, though, if I can just as an aside, that Dr. Coe had mentioned today that it's going to be very, very important for people to get their flu shots this fall and into the wintertime, because hospitals generally get filled to capacity, at least in the areas that, ICUs or emergency departments or other places where they get filled to capacity with people who have flu. And if they get filled to capacity with flu and on top of that, then get overrun by COVID-19 cases, that will mean that there'll be a major pulling back of a lot of the things that may be open. So it's important for people, A, to still continue to be responsible and do all that they can to use social distancing, washing their hands, wearing masks, but it's also going to be important for folks to be proactive with their health as well. So a lot of it will depend.
You always have to remember to unmute yourself. I just did the same thing. This is also for you, Senator. This is from Tom Livingston, Councilman Tom Livingston. The state's single-use plastic bag fee, which was suspended due to COVID-19, is scheduled to go back into effect this Friday, May 15th. Do you know if that is still the case? As you know, Norwalk has its own plastic bag ordinance, which was also suspended. As a result of this action, a number of Norwalk stores are now using plastic bags. The reinstatement of the state's fee at this time, with or without reinstatement of Norwalk's ordinance, will likely result in a lot of confusion among stores and customers. At a minimum, we need to give notice to all involved. Thank you.
Great question, Councilman. And I hadn't heard about the May 15th date yet, but why don't we talk offline about that and I'll get that information. If the governor does revoke the executive order on plastic bags, that would mean that Norwalk's ordinance would go back into effect the way that it was per state law. And because Norwalk had a carve out because its ordinance was tougher than the state's was, and that's how we carved the legislation. So certainly happy to work with you and others and Skip the Plastics and with the mayor to make sure that we're getting the word out and finding the accurate information.
Thank you. Next question is from Nicole regarding, are there any updates on early childhood and the protocols necessary to reopen safely? We know how important that is, early childhood. We know as this, the businesses start to reopen, hopefully people start going back to work, they're going to need some place for their children to go. And we're working on that on a regular basis. We'll be monitoring that and the protocols necessary to reopen safely. Obviously, they'll have to be put in place with sanitization, sanitizing all the properties, making sure that universal precautions are in place. So stay tuned. If you want to email me, Nicole, I'll try to get you a little bit more detailed information. I gave my email address at the beginning. You might have missed it. It's hrilling@norwalkct.org. So if you would email me, I can try to get you some more specific information.
I would also just jump in, Mayor, to say that on the state level, the Office of Early Childhood and Commissioner Beth Bai, one of my former colleagues, is also working very hard to ensure that the proper protocols are in place, working with a number of different partners. And she's actually always cited Norwalk as an excellent example of early childhood and child care as well. So we'll be working on that. If you like, you can also go to ct.gov/coronavirus and look up childcare under the frequently asked questions. And that's been updated quite a bit so that you can find out maybe more specific information as well, how it relates on the state level. And the mayor obviously will keep you posted on the local level.
Thank you, Senator. There's a two-part question here. I'll answer the first part and I'll refer to Chief Kahalik for the second. One is, when will the beach be open again? Kind of answered that already. It is open now, but pretty soon we're going to be opening it to vehicle traffic, and we're going to be limiting the number of parking spaces available so we don't get too many people at the beach at any given time. And the second part of the question from Paul is, how will it be monitored to make sure people follow the rules?
Yes, that's been discussed just briefly, and that's part of our meetings that will be ongoing with Parks and Rec beginning on Wednesday. We've discussed a variety of things, working in concert with their beach staff, the lifeguards. The lifeguards will have different duties this year, it appears, and some of those duties may be to keep an eye out for social distancing. Obviously, we will have police there, as we always do. So it'll be a team effort, and exactly how that's going to play out, we're still working on a plan for that.
Thank you, Chief. Don is asking, will Norwalk Play and Learn open, and if so, when? We have refunded the money for the Norwalk Play and Learn camps. I don't think you'll see Norwalk Play and Learn open this year. Normally, we have over 800 young people in our summer camps. With the new guidelines put out by the state and with the social distancing and the limit to the number of young people at any camp, we're probably only going to have room for approximately 150 children, and they'll be mostly arts and crafts related camps and those kinds of things. We won't be having any field trips or the like. So it's going to be a very, very different year. Again, this is all still a work in progress, and we're not sure exactly what the final model or product is going to look like, but we're going to do as much as we can to accommodate as many people as we can, recognizing the fact that as people start going back to work, this becomes critically important for them to have a place to send their children while they be involved in some enjoyable activities for the summer. What is the best way to report an issue with crowds? Chief, I'll turn that back over to you.
I'm glad someone asked that question, actually, because I meant to mention that. The best way is to just call 854-3000, the routine police number. We've had people reporting to us on social media issues with crowds or with masks, whatever. And that is not the best way to do it, because it may not be checked right away. We may not see it in a timely manner. Similarly, email is not the best way, because that may not be seen in a timely manner. So if you have a concern, just call our routine police number.
Thank you. Debbie also wants to thank us all for everything that we are doing. Debbie, you're very welcome. This can be a very challenging time. As I mentioned earlier, we're learning new things every day. We're writing the manual for this, but everyone right on this town hall meeting right now, Senator Duff, Chief Kahalowick, and I, we have wonderful staffs that are working with us and helping to get things done. You know, this is a team effort. A lot of people involved, a lot of dedicated, hardworking people who want to see us through this. And so it may be challenging at certain times, but our staffs are really working hard behind the scenes, out in front, and doing a lot of the things. So thank you for your kind words. Are we worried about crowds during the Memorial Day weekend? You know, yeah, we are. We're not sure that the beach will be open or to what degree it'll be open on the Memorial Day weekend. You know, there's always picnics and barbecues that people want to go to, but here we are in a very, very different time than we've ever been in before. And the sacrifices we've made up to this point have proven to be effective to a degree, although, you know, we're not, like I said, at the end of the tunnel yet. The light at the end of the tunnel is not there. We're not out of the woods. So, you know, all we can do is hope that people on the Memorial Day weekend try to find ways to celebrate, but also to do so responsibly and make sure that they do it in the right way. So we're hopeful that we can at least have some sort of control over that. This one I will refer to Senator Duff. Is it possible the state changes the May 20 date or amends the businesses that are opening?
Thanks, Mayor. I don't think at this point there'll be any more changes to what opens up on May 20th. The only change that was made was that originally Nail Salons was going to be open, and that got changed so that they're not going to be open now. There's been further detailed guidance that has been put out over the weekend. And so in listening to Dr. Coe and Ingenuity today, I don't think that there will be any additional changes right now. And that's why you haven't seen really any specific guidance as to what will happen after that, because we really do have to determine how this works out, this kind of baby steps rolls out.
Thank you. And the city is also working along those guidelines. The 20th is a kind of a day of evaluation for the city standpoint. What are we ready to do? What are we not ready to do? And again, with the idea towards safety. So Putnam, 98, said, please, I imagine he's talking to me or she's talking to me. Please stop touching your faces. We want you to stay well. I'm trying to put my glasses up on my face. They keep slipping off. But then the minute I read that question, my forehead started to itch. So thank you for your kind words, and I'll do my best, and thank you again. Kelly's asking, are non-Norwalk residents allowed at the beach? Too many New York plates last year. Non-Norwalk residents are allowed at the beach. We are not allowed to restrict water access to people who don't live in Norwalk. We just implemented a new system of online passes, and we've indicated that the charges are going to be higher for non-Norwalk residents in order to get in. And when we first open the beach, we're going to have a limit to the number of parking spaces for vehicles that are not registered in Norwalk. It used to be that a person who had a vehicle registered in New York but owned property in Norwalk could get a pass to go into the beach and not pay. That's changed now. If their vehicle is not registered in the city of Norwalk, they have to pay an additional fee in order to go into the beach. So we're trying to do, we recognize we have a beautiful beach. People come from all over that want to go there. You know, it's a challenge, but we try to do the best we can. Are there any plans to open an additional testing site in Norwalk? And will masks be distributed to the general public? I'll start with the second part of the question first. Yes, we are working. As I mentioned earlier, we have distributed over 150,000 pieces of personal protection equipment to the general public. We will be trying to get more and having a general distribution site. and an additional testing site in Norwalk. Yeah, we're hoping that we can do that because, as you know, one of the criteria for opening, going from phase to phase is having testing available, widespread testing. So we're hoping that we will be able to do that. We have one now, as you know, on Elmcrest Terrace. And we're hoping to open another at some point very soon. We also know that there's a private a doctor's office, I believe, that has one open in Stanford and perhaps Darien. Will you be going out to eat next week for a meal outside? If so, where? You know what? And this is by Ron. And you know what? I'm gonna answer that question. I'm gonna pass it off to Senator Duff and to Chief Kaholwick. My wife and I love going out to eat here in the city of Norwalk. We have some wonderful, wonderful restaurants, and it's such a shame what's happened. Many of them may not open again. We've been trying to order out as much as we possibly can to help wherever we can. And the answer to your question, Ron, is yes. If so, where? I haven't made up my mind yet, but I don't want to cite one place to the exclusion of any other place because we have all our restaurants are great. Senator, how about you?
Great question. And I would agree with that. We have great restaurants here in the city. We actually had a wonderful Mother's Day dinner yesterday from Tavern on 7. We've gotten pizza at a couple different places recently. But if anybody thinks that I have 2 kids and my wife, and if anybody thinks I'm the decision maker as to where we're going to get our next meal out, you're mistaken. So I will go pick it up, I'll go pay for it, but I'm not the decider. But anyway, wherever they decide, I'm sure it'll be very good.
Chief, what about you?
That's easy for me. My favorite restaurant is Match, so I'll be there if he's open with his outdoor seating or with the window seating. If I can get a reservation, maybe I'll have to have you call for me and use your pull and see if Matt will let me in. But no, that's the first place I'd like to go. I've been waiting for a while now.
Yeah, good, good. Will the state or city be providing guidelines on how to hold graduations? The state probably would be working for some of the state institutions perhaps, but the city is, we're looking to see any way that we can possibly help the class of 2020 celebrate this milestone in their life. This is such a critical time for them. It's an achievement, an accomplishment, something they've looked for years. And now we find ourselves in this dilemma of not being able to have a formal graduation ceremony like perhaps we would have liked. There's been discussions on several possibilities. One of the possibilities was to try to hold it maybe, if things would allow, sometime in the 3rd week of August before some of our young people would be going off to college. Others are talking about perhaps some sort of a drive-in graduation ceremony. I don't know how that would unfold and how we could do that. But we are looking at any possibility because we want our young class of 2020 to understand that we are committed to try to help them celebrate this milestone in their life. I mean, I remember my graduation as if it was yesterday, and I love addressing the Brian McMahon High School and the Norwalk High School classes that are graduating and seeing the enthusiasm on their face, the excitement, and what it means to them to be moving to the next chapter of their lives. So knowing how important this is, rest assured we will try to do anything we possibly can.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's, you know, I'm not sure who it's harder on, if it's harder on the parents or it's harder on the kids, because the parents know what the kids are missing. The kids don't know what they're missing. And there's been a lot of things that have been, you know, spring sports and the musicals and the graduations, the proms, the PGPs, everything else. So I think any way that we can safely do it, we have to do without putting anybody at risk. But it's been tough for the kids for sure. And I'd also just mention too, Mayor, since somebody raised the question on this, is that, you know, this is a tough time for kids. And sometimes, you know, they're not able to see their friends, they're not able to, you know, other than, thank God, they have FaceTime and other means like TikTok or Snapchat. but you know, we as adults, we have to make sure that we are listening to them. We're modeling good behavior. We understand when they're getting stressed. And if anybody's having, any parents are having any issues with stress themselves, they should go to talkitoutct.com for a phone number that helps parents to talk it out with a professional, so that they can, in case there's any issues of stress or other types of things going on in the home.
Thank you. Yep. Next question. We have 2 questions left. My husband would like to know if Oak Hills Golf Course will be open, and if so, when. Oak Hills Golf Course had what we would like to refer to as a soft opening on this past Saturday. The weather was kind of difficult, but we had a soft opening. As you know, we closed Oak Hills quite some time ago. Some communities never closed their golf course. Others have already reopened. We were very reluctant to reopen anytime soon, so we kind of put that in with some of the other parks that we're opening. There are very strict guidelines at Oak Hills. One is now, instead of a 7 or an 8 minute in between tee times, there's a 12-minute gap in between tee times. There's no carts allowed. There's no walk-ins. Right now, I believe it's open to only residents, and there's walking only and no golf carts. So we're trying to see how that works out. And if it works out, we'll continue to have them open. If it doesn't, well, then we'll have to make some changes. Last question is from Sandra. Knowing that African Americans have a higher risk of death from the coronavirus, what efforts or strategies has been put in place to offer equal access to testing and treatment in the urban community? Again, the testing and the treatment in the urban community, the testing and treatment goes with the hospital. We have partnered with the NAACP and the Norwalk Housing Authority to pass out some personal protective equipment to every household in the Norwalk Housing Authority properties. We're also doing what we call heat mapping to see where our cases are coming from, to determine the largest pocket perhaps of where we may need to have some extra effort. So we're working on that as well. And we do know that you know, the AmeriCares and the Day Street Healthcare Center and the Healthcare Center up on Connecticut Avenue, they will offer free evaluations for people who can go up there who might not have health coverage or might not have the wherewithal to get a doctor's appointment or get the testing, and all the testing will be for free. So all of these individual organizations are working diligently to reach out to the communities that are most vulnerable, and trying to educate and trying to help them out in any way they can. I don't know, Senator Duff, did you have anything you could add to that?
Yeah, let me just talk about it from a state level too, is that I think a lot of this comes down to, and which is one of the reasons why I mentioned our rest stop workers and our nursing home workers and grocery store workers and others, because a lot of those frontline workers tend to be folks who are not getting the personal protective equipment. They tend to be more hourly wage workers, and they're disproportionately are people of color who are not getting the same access that maybe everybody else is getting. So we have to be very mindful of that as we are working to continuing to flatten the curve. We have to keep our eye on how more people in our urban centers who are living more closely together are more susceptible to COVID-19. And then also some of those folks who live in the more concentrated areas are the ones who are working at the grocery stores, at the rest stops, at the nursing homes, and are not getting the same type of PPE that maybe others are getting as well. So it has to be top of mind. It has to be something that is equalized across all areas and all occupations, and there aren't winners and losers. Certainly we don't want to suggest that you know, only one group is getting it over another, but I think there has been some evidence of the fact that it's not been distributed evenly. Some evidence has been, and this, I don't know that this is locally, but if you look at hospitals across the country, you see that those who work in the kitchens maybe only get a surgical mask or less. And, folks who are obviously the doctors and nurses are getting additional, and the folks who are who are the custodians or who are in the kitchens are getting COVID-19 at a greater rate and getting sicker, and some are dying. And so that's why, this whole mess of not having enough PPE when this first started, from a national perspective, was an embarrassment and a disgrace. And it has put people's lives at risk, and it has actually killed people. So we have to continue our efforts and use our voices so that everybody has the same access to PPE, and we're not putting one group over another at risk.
Thank you. Well said. Those are the only questions that have come up. We ended up having 20 questions. I want to thank the people who logged in to listen to what we have to say and to ask questions. We will be continuing our town hall meetings on Monday night. Each night that I have the town hall meeting, I will have a guest. Senator, if you want to talk about when you have your meetings, I know you do Sundays and Wednesdays. And
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. And thanks again to you and your team. Thanks, Chief Kahalik, for all that you do. This Wednesday, I have 2 Facebook Lives at 3 o'clock. I have Deputy Commissioner Dante Bartolomeo from the Department of Labor. And then at 7 o'clock, I have Congressman Jim Himes. I have a standing Wednesday Facebook Live. And then the week after that, I have Paul Mounds, the Governor's Chief of Staff, coming on. And then Sundays at 7 o'clock, I have a Instagram town hall. So Wednesdays and Sundays at 7, but I have a special one this Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And just find me at Senator Duff on Facebook, and you can RSVP, and you'll get a reminder that it's coming up just like this event. So thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator Duff, for joining me. I know, Chief Kahalik, you also do some Instagram things. I've been a guest on one of your shows as well. You want to talk about what you do?
Yeah, we've done a couple Instagram lives from my office. I haven't done one in a couple weeks, but I plan to continue if the restrictions still stay in place, and just trying to keep our face out there and let people know the police are still out there, and we really value the community involvement, and it's been tough not being able to do the things that we've been doing and are used to doing. So this is the closest thing we can get right now.
Thank you. I'm so proud of our police and fire departments, our teachers, all the people who are out there, our healthcare workers. They are just such dedicated, professional people. Even, the heroes and the sheroes that rise to the occasion when we have something like this. The people that are not the people you normally see, the cashiers and the grocery workers and pharmacy workers, all those who are out there every single day exposing themselves to potential harm by being out in the public. Just an amazing time, and I'm so proud of our city for all the wonderful people that work hard and all the responsible people that are doing the things they need to do. So with that, again, thank you. Good night, Norwalk. We're all in this together, and we will absolutely get through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.